So we're going to start off the video with a little clip or a little information about 5G. So what does 5G actually enable us to do? Three main advantages of what 5G brings to us is number one, data transfer rate. It allows a faster data transfer rate as compared to what we have in 4G, up to 100 times faster. A second advantage is actually latency. Latency means the delay rate or the delay time between when a command is being given and when it's actually being executed. It would actually allow human devices connection or even devices to devices connection be toned down to just 1 millisecond. So the final advantage that 5G actually brings us is energy and cost. With 5G, it actually reduces all the energy that's being used and the cost as well. But this is a topic for another discussion. So let's move on from there. What I need you to do right now is actually pack all this information and park them somewhere else. What exactly is cloud computing? Whenever people talk about cloud computing, they take things too literally. They thought that it's pulling all of your resources into one place and sending it up to the internet. Simple concept of cloud computing is actually putting all of our resources into a pool, and if anybody wants a piece of anything, they could actually access this pool of resources, take whatever they want, use whatever they want, and eventually pay for whatever they use. But wait, there's more than that. So whenever I talk about cloud computing, there's three key components that always comes with it. It's called the SaaS, the PaaS, and the IaaS. The most surface level of all of this is actually the SaaS, which means software as a service. Popular examples of companies that offer this kind of softwares or SaaS is actually Google, Microsoft Office, and Slack, and even Netflix is actually a form of SaaS. The second architecture piece of this whole cloud computing is actually platform as a service. So what companies do in this case, they actually build up all the hardware, they build a platform for you to run your software, execute your codes, and essentially they sell all these kind of services and they sell the maintenance for all of this hardware as well. Popular examples of PaaS includes the very well-known WordPress, Microsoft Azure, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, and many more. And finally, the last layer of cloud computing is actually IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service. So what this does is infrastructure as a service provides the raw computing power for the users and allow them full access and control over whichever component they need in the infrastructure. What the heck does all of this have to do with climate change? Instead of focusing what we can do in the future, why not we focus on the past and the present? Before the public is familiar with the concept and the potential of cloud computing, everybody thought they needed a powerhouse or a server to perform whatever duties they need to perform. So according to sources, PC companies sold a total of 350 million units on average in the US alone, and those are just numbers for personal computers. The figure shows the PC economy is going healthy and strong, but the sales unit doesn't reflect the manufacturing unit. We know the manufacturing unit is often higher than the sales unit. So in this scenario, there are a few things that we need to take into account. Number one, manufacturing. We know that in order to have all this hardware together, we'll need to have factories and people to actually build this kind of components and put them together for us. So to perform all these kind of duties in our daily lives, the process of gathering or putting together raw material involves a high amount of machinery and human labor. This means that factories would discharge a lot of energy for all this work and also a lot of waste from both technical and human errors. Number two, carbon footprint. Forefronting companies that sells PCs don't create factories in every country, but they only target countries that has the lowest tariffs and also the labor costs. This means that the final products would then need to be transported into the countries or the markets that they want to sell it to. This distribution method involves massive chain of courier services. Transport using large vehicles means more carbon footprint from not just the assembly line, but it starts from the manufacturing of the components as well. And finally, the third problem is consumerism. Ask anybody on the street and they would tell you that the devices that they're holding are only expected to last up to 2 to 3 years. When the device dies, they look to buy new ones in the market. This is because the repair costs for their existing devices are actually more than the cost of purchasing a new one. This will lead to more waste because electronic devices are now being disposed as fast as they are being bought. The aggregation of all of these factors contributed to a fair share of faults towards the cause of climate change. So what is the solution? How is cloud computing going to solve all of this? Well, first of all, having shared resources and computing power in the cloud means users can now tap into the power that they didn't have before or couldn't achieve individually with a fraction of the cost that they used to pay. This sets off a chain of events because, for one, it definitely reduces the market demand for hardware and computing components. Manufacturers will have to reduce supply to adapt to the demand in order to avoid loss in revenue due to redundant stock that wouldn't sell. Reduced manufacturing units also means less carbon footprint in totality. With less units in the markets and in the homes of the users, this generally means that there will be a downturn on computing power in the wild. With less computing power, it also means the energy consumption in the public is lower than it will be, and the heat energy discharge from these devices would definitely be cut down. What does Microsoft have to do in all of this? With the vast amount of data gathered, paired with their machine learning development and introduction to Microsoft Azure, which is their cloud computing service, Microsoft is able to advise business owners on the amount of computing power that they need alongside the softwares they offer that could help its clients transform and adapt to the digital realm in the most efficient way. Reports show that the combination of this intelligent system and the calculation actually results in a decrease of up to 92% of carbon footprint compared to using an on-premise computing power for the company's day-to-day operations. Remember the 5G that we talked about at the start? So what has it got to do with all of this? For now, the main problem with cloud computing is mainly the data transfer rate. And what improves the data transfer rate? It's 5G. Then again, there are still some problems with both cloud computing and 5G. Microsoft Cloud Service is set to increase over the years, but this also means that there are more people utilizing the cloud computing service, and it will definitely exceed the current number of users significantly. This means that the existing hardware and components stacked up by the companies like Microsoft would have to take on more load and tasks, as the stress on this network of the hardware is more likely to exceed the previous threshold. This could also mean that the power consumption will be more likely to increase to uphold the processing power of all these machines. With cloud computing paired with 5G, it means that the end users will only need basic hardware to get access to the cloud computing network to perform heavy-duty tasks. This will increase the popularity of mid and low-level electronic products because they are affordable and widely accessible. Eventually, all these products will go to waste once it's faulty, and consumers will not be bothered to repair them due to the low price tag and wide availability in the market. And finally, while the world and our technology is moving at such a fast pace, is it always better to keep pushing things forward? Are we just blindly chasing a future that we fantasize without considering the stakes, risks, and sacrifices we gotta make? Will companies and tech giants like Microsoft make a stand and help to resolve these issues? Thank you for listening. Hope you had a great time and you learned a lot. See you next time in another assignment, hopefully. Cheers!